McMaster, and from Brooklyn, New York, Artie, Panagiotakos. Gentlemen, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you.
All right, Mike, do you have a favorite sports movie?
Can I give you two? I like Space Jam and Major League because I think too often in New York we take sports too seriously, and it's a lot more fun to watch a sports movie that is what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be entertaining.
For me, it was Remember the Titans. It's based on a true story, and as a coach, I found that a coach could bring a team like that together through all that they had to go through, and then to go through that season was just great and inspired me.
Did you say you were a coach?
Yes.
What do you coach?
Currently, I coach volleyball, but I started out with basketball, and I went to track and field for high school, and it's really rewarding.
Okay. Your worst sports memories? Artie, start with you. Worst sports memories?
Unfortunately, as a Met fan, I went to the Louis Castillo game, and it was probably the worst feeling I had in sports. If you remember, K-Rod was pitching, and we were anticipating that A-Rod was going to come up. And at that time, he had 18 straight saves. Okay, and we looked at each other and we said, this is going to be the game that A-Rod goes deep. And when he popped them up, we were jumping up like little kids, and then we see him stumbling a little bit, and I have that Artie stare, and I said, please no, and just to see that ball drop. And then it was amazing that they lost the game. I didn't even know where the guy came from, assuming that Texiera was the tying run. But then when I realized they actually lost the game, and 50,000 people were pounding on my head, because for a second there we were jumping for joy. That was the worst.
Mike,
Growing up, I was a left-hander, and I was a big Yankee fan, and my dad would sit me down and have me watch Andy Pettitte to figure out how it is to throw as a left-hander. I imitated his pick move when I was a little kid, and when he was traded to the Houston Astros, I couldn't understand why. So for me, it was redemption to watch him in the World Series with the Astros, and it was great to have him back for a second trip.
And what do you guys like besides sports, Mike?
I'm a big newspapers guy. I was the editor-in-chief of my college newspaper in addition to working on the radio there. So I like to read, I like sports books, and I also like World War II history.
I drive my family crazy with the singing in the shower in the room. I'm a karaoke guy. I loved Elvis, so now I think I'm a wannabe. So, treat me like a fool? All right.
If you guys could interview any one athlete, who would it be? Artie, we start with you.
Does he have to be living?
Nope.
It would definitely have to be Jackie Robinson. You know, on the same theme of the Remember the Titans. I mean, to know what this guy went through, I just would love to just spend time with him and just get the feeling, and maybe just show a little appreciation. Because even the thing that they have in the City Field, I think my son is 8, and I tell him about Jackie Robinson and tell him how great he was and why his number was retired. I said, when you make the New York Mets, you cannot wear number 42. So now I have him as a player wearing number 42.
All right.
Put me on Kia NBA shoot-around next year with Charles Barkley and Shaquille O'Neal on the same set. That's where I want to be. I want to be with those two guys in the same interview. I think that's going to be better than most NBA basketball games to watch next year.
Yeah, if there are games to watch. All right, we ready to go here? Mike, you are up first. 2 minutes. You're on the clock.
Good evening and welcome to the Sports Animals. My name is Mike McMaster, and I'll be taking you through this evening, and we'll be talking a little bit about the trade deadline in the New York Yankees, and not about what's going to happen this year with the Yankees, or whether they made a bad move or a good move for this year, but whether they made a good move for the future. I think Yankee fans sometimes lose sight of the fact that Brian Cashman needs to think about the future, and he hasn't always done that. In the past, Cashman made it a habit to trade away prospects for people, for free agents and free agent signings. And look where that got him. We have the late Hideki Irabu, Carl Pavano, Randy Johnson. The list goes on of failed Yankee starters. To hang on to guys like Benuelos or Betances, it costs way too much money to go out onto a free agent market and grab a pitcher. Even when you hit with a guy like CC Sabathia, he's going to exercise an option at the end of this year that will cost the Yankees millions of dollars. More often than not, you get a guy like A.J. Burnett, who, yeah, he's a solid pitcher, but you're paying him way too much money. What the Yankees are doing now with guys like Ivan Nova and Phil Hughes, and yes, even Ian Kennedy, you can look at what he's doing in the National League this year, is much more smart and much more financially savvy for a team that's trying to get the most out of its farm system. And if you look at the New York Mets, they're doing something very similar right now. Sandy Alderson picking up a prospect at the All-Star break by trading Carlos Beltran. It's building from the farm system, building from within. It's the only way to win. It's how the Red Sox got themselves to the place they are with John Henry. And I think that the New York Yankees made a great move by holding on. You don't want a guy like Ubaldo Jimenez or Hiroki Kuroda just to make a trade at the deadline. Jimenez is a guy with an above 4 ERA, and Kuroda's 36. You don't trade away two guys under 25 for a guy that's 36 years old when the team may not, when it's a who can beat the Phillies contest this year anyway. The Yankees made a great move to stay put at the trade deadline thinking about their future, but I want to hear about what you think, and we'll listen to it on the Sports Animals coming right back.
All right, so the Yankees have always had in the past, or for the most time, philosophy, you've got to win now. Maybe the Cleveland Indians are doing that, maybe the Pirates are doing that. Brian Cashman's contract is expired this year, so now you're in maybe a little bit different position. So, do you want to win this year, or are you saying, you know what, let's just keep building for the future. If we don't win, we don't win?
Well, the Yankees have been in a win-now mentality since the 70s, so they have to win now every year. The fact of the matter is they don't win every year, and this year is going to be a beat the Phillies sweepstakes. Brian Cashman's been able to hang on to his job for more than 15 years now. That's no coincidence for a guy who came up through the Yankees as an intern. So, for me, if I'm Brian Cashman, I'm thinking about the future of the team, and I'm not going to hand it away for a guy who had one aberration of a season in Ubaldo Jimenez, and I'm not going to hand it away for a guy who's 36 years old in Hiroki Kuroda. And I think you saw it when the Daily News published an article a couple of weeks ago talking about the people that the Yankees could go after, and they named people like Jeremy Guthrie and Mark Burley. And when you think about that, it's not an upgrade from what they have now. You don't trade away prospects if you don't think that you're upgrading for what you can get.
Will there be an NBA season? And will people care?
Well, it would be a tragedy if there wasn't an NBA season, because I think we've finally gotten back to a point where America is interested in the NBA again. So for that reason, they have to try everything they can to make it work. But as one of the previous contestants said, they need to open the books and demonstrate to us how it is that they're losing so much money. It's a much more difficult situation than you saw in the NFL. In the NFL, the question is, how do you split up $7 billion? That's a tough question, but you still can do it when every team is profitable and you're sharing the money. In the NBA, when 22 teams are reporting that they're losing money, the question gets a little bit more difficult. What David Stern needs to do is figure out how and why these teams are losing money and what it is that they can do to resolve it. Because the owners are not going to have a season if it's not financially responsible for it.
I think the NBA should contract.
Should contract?
Less franchises.
I think they probably should, and if they shouldn't contract the teams, they should at least contract the playoffs. The idea that more than half of the teams in the NBA get in, and every year there's a team like the Pacers this year that's sneaking in with a below 500 record, it cheapens the regular season. For me, when I'm turning on the TV and looking for something to watch, it makes it so that there's no reason to watch. And a perfect example of that this year was there was a Heat-Lakers game late in the season, in the spring this year, on a Sunday afternoon, and I was with my friends at college, and we turned it on, and you could look into the stands in Miami, and there was nobody there. If I was the owner of that team, I would have been out in the streets giving tickets away so that people would watch. It makes the league look bad, it makes the teams look bad, and it's no wonder that a league that's that poorly managed, that can't generate the interest in the regular season, is having so many problems.
Give us 30 seconds on the Jets and 30 seconds on the Giants and what's gone on since the end of the World Cup.
Well, I think that the Jets could be the big winners this year. That receiving core is going to be a question, but bringing back Artie was key for them. If they go out with the same guys that they had last year, they've got a very good chance to get back to where they came to again. Of course, Rex Ryan takes a lot of the pressure off of his players. I'm not a fan of his coaching style. I am a Giants fan, so perhaps a little bit biased. But I think that, if you were to think about what he did last year and say, I want to be accountable for my team, accountability should mean that he didn't win a Super Bowl. That means he gets fired, right? That's what accountable means. Now, he shouldn't get fired. You don't go to 2 AFC championships in a row and get fired. But accountability means being accountable for your actions and your words. On the Giants side, I think that this could be a tough year if they aren't able to pick anybody up. They came out on the tough side of this CBA with the cap room for them minimized. They did a nice job getting a couple of guys, including Brandon Jacobs, to restructure. But I think if they brought back Plexico Burress, they would have had a much better opportunity to make another run at a Super Bowl. They just need another big guy to go up and catch a football. And if Steve Smith can't compete this year, that's going to be a big problem.
All right, Mike, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Microphone for Artie. All right, Artie, you've got 2 minutes and you're on the clock.
877-337-6666. Aristos Panagiotakos on the fan. Okay, so Rex Ryan, according to Rex, is that the Jets are going to win the Super Bowl. What a surprise on Rex. Yeah. But you know what? That's 3 years in a row for Rex. And then he also says that the Jets, they're going to have the best team out of the last 3 years that he's been coaching. Really, Rex? Asamoah, the green hat that he was wearing, that wasn't a Jet hat. It was an Eagles hat. He's not on your team. And the Smith that signed the contract, that was Eric Smith. That wasn't Brad Smith. So you're telling me now that the team that lost, okay, Brad Smith, that lost Braylon Edwards, that didn't get Asamoah, is now better than the teams that you coached? I don't think so. Okay? So you're gonna be looking for guys to replace that 1,500 yards of all-purpose yards, and where are you going to find them? Let's look at the draft. Okay, they drafted a defensive tackle in the first round. Okay, that's not going to get the pass rush you need. And then in the third round, you draft another defensive tackle. If the first defensive tackle was good enough, why are you doing it again? Then in the fourth round, they go draft a running back. Washington, who was drafted from USC, didn't even see the field until the last playoff game. What are you going to do with that guy? All the needs that they needed, the pass rush, the safety, they never addressed it at the draft. So now you're going to be stuck looking at this team and telling me that this team is better than the last 2 years. I don't think so. So call the number, 877-337-6666. I want to hear what you have to say.
All right, let's switch over to the Giants and how they've handled things since the end of the lockout.
Well, they did what they had to do. I mean, they couldn't really make much moves because they were at the maximum of the salary cap. But they had a team that they felt was good enough to not only, don't forget that when they were playing against the Eagles, they had like a 24-point lead. They are a very good team without guys like the defensive linemen that they lost out on. And so they really didn't have to make that move. They stayed pat.
Let's move over to baseball. You're Brian Cashman. Would you have made any moves before the deadline or no?
I think it's very hard to know that, to go into the playoffs thinking that A.J. Burnett is going to be your number 2 pitcher. I think if maybe Jimenez was not what they were asking for too much, I think if they stayed in contact with them and try to lower what they were the asking price, because nobody really knows, I mean, if they got Jimenez, it would have been a much better choice than A.J. Burnett at the number 2 spot.
All right, the Mets. How do you assess the Mets?
I think they were lucky enough that Beltran had a great season, and they were able to trade him, and he wasn't demand. I think it was a tough choice to keep Reyes, because I think when he got hurt, maybe they put a little thought in his mind that maybe the asking price wasn't going to be as the price that Crawford got. So maybe the Mets think now that they can get him for a cheap price, and they, by trading Reyes at the time of the deadline, even though I thought it would have been the best move for them overall, it would have lost the crowd. So as far as what Alderson did, as far as getting a top pitcher for Beltran, a prospect, I think he did the best that he could.
Is next year's Mets closer on the team right now?
Well, I was hoping it was going to be Parnell. But as far as he could see, he didn't, like even the 8th inning spot, it's just that he has his ups and downs, and I think that confidence level that he had at once, he could lose real quick. So I think they'll have to go into free agency. Like Isringhausen, who doesn't have the stuff that Parnell has. He has the experience and the confidence, and he's done it before. So I think you have to put Parnell in the spot, see how it goes, and then make the decision after.
Who will be playing in this year's World Series?
I think the best 2 teams right now are the Phillies and it's either the Yankees or the Red Sox. Being a Met fan, I'm going to say the Red Sox.
All right, Artie, thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much.
And that concludes Fantasy Phenom for tonight. I'd like to thank the folks here at Markers in Jersey City. Also like to thank the WFAN Promotions Department and Partners in Sound for help with the audio tonight. Join us Thursday night in East Chester. We'll be at Mickey Spillane's. Thank you all very much and have a good night.